It is 54 days to the presidential and parliamentary elections. Good afternoon. Welcome to Election Brief. My name is Faustina Safo. We're live on DSTV channel 421, GoTV channel 125, on all our social media handles and around the world on myjoyonline.com. Election headquarters is brought to you by Petrosol Platinum Energy, energizing dreams, the Chartered Institute of Management Accountants, CIMA, and the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants, AICPA, together as the Association of International Certified Professional Accountants. Also brought to you by German Ozone Medical Center, Alternative Therapy, Dental Wellness and Beauty, as well as Chopbox Technologies, a convenient service, and Youth Bridge Foundation, bridging the gap for positive youth development. Please stay for details. Thanks for choosing us for your home of independent, fearless, and credible journalism. Now, monetary policy rate all over the world is known to control inflation and check the cost of borrowing. In Ghana, this economic indicator seems to go beyond this primary mandate, as it is, and it has over the years painted an interesting picture of who wins the presidential election. Surprise? Well, we'll tell you all about it. Joy News Research Desk, they've been studying the trend in the Fourth Republic and discovering an interesting relationship between these two factors. Lead data and research analyst Kofi J joins me in the studio with details. Kofi, walk us through your findings. Interesting correlation between policy rate and who wins the presidential election.
Right, the monetary policy rate checks inflation and then also the cost of borrowing. But per our studies, it does beyond just these two, indicators that we've spoken about. The figure you see on the screen, the 29% and 27%, isn't just a figure.
Okay.
It actually tests the pulse of the economy. And in our trend analysis, you realize why Ghanaians prioritize economic determinants over all other issues when it comes to elections. We've seen, monetary policy rate now being reduced from 29% to 27%. It is the rate at which the Bank of Ghana borrows to the commercial banks. They also either add or subtract or maintain it and lend to us. It gauges the inflation or the pressure in the economy. And over the years, we've been studying this out right from 1992, in fact, in the Fourth Republic, to see if it has any special relationship with the outcome of presidential elections in the country. So we've selected 4 elections for you. As you can see, the 2000,
starting from 2020,
exactly, the 2000 elections,
okay,
the 2008 election, 2016 election, and now we're talking about 2024 elections. Now you can see that all the election periods that we've selected are the aspects where we have peaks, and it tells an interesting story why these election periods have been selected. Now, let's start from the 2000. In 2000, something interesting happened. So what you are saying is that, let me put it straight, that whenever you have monetary policy rates rising or peaking, that is when we always see a change in government. We are not trying to predict the elections, but all we are saying is that there's an interesting story behind this curve that you see on the screen. It is not just a curve. Now, in 2000, when we saw the first change in power, where power shifted from the hands of the NDC to the MPP, monetary policy rate was peaking right from 1998, 1999 to 2000, where the economic pressure was so high that Ghanaians decided to shift power from the NDC to the MPP. Now, in 2008, we saw the same thing happening. What we see is that after a government takes over, what we see is that now the monetary policy rate begins to now slow down or decline. That is when the economy begins, the economy begins to respond to some of the measures put in place by the government, and you get your second term. 2008, a similar story happened where we saw another peak. So the first peak was in 2000, then 2008, we are seeing the same peak. And what we saw was that the same story pan out, where power now shifts from the NPP to the NDC in 2008. 2016, we saw the same peak. So right from here, NDC takes over in 2008. They start to stabilize the economy. We see the curve going down. Then before the election in 2016, we saw the economic indicators started deteriorating right from 2014, 2015, and 2016. What happens is that now power shifts from the NDC to the MPP. We are seeing the same trend playing out in 2024. We simply do not know what will happen in 2024. But all we are saying is that there's an interesting story behind these peaks that we've seen over the years, that they are not just there just because they are trends, but they tell an interesting story of the outcome of our presidential elections. So what we are saying is that anytime there's that peak, that monetary policy rate peak, they always happen in the periods where a government is going for their third term. They want to break the eight, like they call it, and then we see power shift. We do not know what will happen in the 2024 election. But what we also know is that if you look at the previous slide that just came, what we are seeing is that the higher the peak, the higher the margin of defeat. So in 2000, when we saw the NPP come into power, the margin was a bit huge between, John Agyekum Kufuor and then Mills. Then 2008, we saw the NDC winning. I mean, they won with 50.2%. Just look at the peak here compared to 2000. You realize that the peak in 2000 was as high compared to that of 2016. And that meant that the margin of win for the NPP was so huge. They won the election by 56.9%. 2008, there was the same peak, but it wasn't as high as 2000. Now, what we see is that the NDC wins, but they won with 50.2. 2016 was one of the years that we saw the highest peak compared to 2000. And that was the same year that the economic indicators were not that good. We saw a higher peak, and the NPP wins power with 53.9%. Now, in the Fourth Republic, we are seeing the highest peak in terms of monetary policy rate, which went as high as 30 and 31%. Now we're talking about 27%. But we're asking a very simple question. Will this trend continue? It's an interesting story that we wait to see on December 7th. Will
this trend continue? Quite an interesting question. You can share your thoughts with us on all our social media handles. We're Joy News on TV. Well, Isaac is still here with me for the next analysis because the Electoral Commission has increased the number of polling stations by 22.8%, adding more than 7 new polling stations. The total number of registered voters stand at 18,772,809. But as has been in the past and the practice that the EC have been doing for a while now, since as far back as 1992, the EC will print 2% more ballot papers to make up for contingencies. Kofi, you saw the distribution of that ballot paper. Just walk us through it.
I mean, they've actually increased the number of polling stations by more than 7,600 polling stations. But it's interesting to start the analysis from this point that we are going to see the total number of registered voters comparing 2020 to that of 2024 increase by more than 1 million new voters. So we are moving from a total voters register of 17.03 million people now to 18.7, almost 19 million, registered voters that will be going to vote in the upcoming election. The interesting bit is that although we are expecting 19 million, let's look at the next slide and see what it says about the printing of the ballot. So we spoke about the polling station. Now, because the total number of registered voters have actually increased, what happens is that the EC will go ahead to add more polling stations. So just like you put it there, the number of polling stations will now be increased by more than 7,000. We are moving from that 33, a little above 33 million now to over 40,000, almost close to 41,000 polling stations in the 2024 election, meaning that voting will probably end early. You have fewer number of people in polling stations, and that will help with convenience, and we will not have overcrowding in polling stations. But the interesting thing has to do with this total registered voters. Now we know that you just said it right, that we are expecting close to 19 million people to vote, 18.77 million people. Now the EC will go ahead not to print exactly the same number of ballot papers. They will print more, additional 2%. And the reason why they do this is to make up for contingencies. Maybe what happens is that on the election day it might rain, some of the ballot papers may get damaged, or maybe like it happened in the, I think, a Wutu North constituency, somewhere like that, where the EC official was tearing the ballot paper and ended up tearing the head of one particular candidate, and they have to replace. So all of those contingencies is actually the reason why the EC always go ahead to print additional ballot paper. So we are going to see the same 2%. It's not going to differ from what the conventional practice from 1992. So, I mean, we're expecting 18.77, but trust me, EC will print additional 2% in terms of the ballot papers for state.
Thank you, Isaac Ofieje, our data analyst here at Shore News. We'll be back after this break to break down the NDC manifesto promises for women. Just stay tuned. Thanks for staying with us. Now let's shift our attention to the NDC. The former president, John Dramani Mahama, has outlined ambitious plans to create jobs for women across multiple sectors, including agriculture, technology and business, as part of the National Democratic Congress' broader strategy to reduce unemployment and drive economic transformation. Today, we'll delve into the key policy proposals for women. My guest in the studio is Dr. Hannah Louisa Bisiu-Kotue. She is the National Women's Organizer of the NDC. Thank you for your time here on Election Brief. Let's start from the 24-hour economy. How do you plan to rope in the women?
Well, the 24-hour economy simply, it's one job, 3 people, 3 shifts. How do we intend to rope in women? Since it's going to cut across all sectors, especially one of the policies that His Excellency has is a market enhancement policy, where he's going to enhance our markets. We already know him. That's one of the things that he loves doing. And so that we can have the activities, 24 hours. That's morning, afternoon, morning, evening, dawn, then morning runabout. And so the employment that is going to be created from that, women are going to benefit largely. Aside that, he has this, he's going to do a lot of recruitment also into the security agencies. And with that, he said that he'll be recruiting a lot of women into the police force. And so that alone is also going to up, the number of women in the security agencies, so that these women will be used in protecting the various businesses that will be participating in the 24-hour economy policy. And mind you, it's not something that is going to be forced. He says once you sign on it, you gain all the benefits that government has for businesses in that aspect. So the women, largely, apart from the businesses that we'll be doing, they also, if I sell wache, if I'm on the market, or if I want to get into the security agencies, he's going to have a special number for women, to be recruited into the police force.
Let's shift attention now to the National Apprenticeship Program. How do you plan to ensure women benefit from this program, especially when there are crafts where men mostly dominate that field?
Well, we'll be having quotas. And so we'll be looking at the various trades where women dominate. But don't, these days you go out there, you find women in the featuring. But of course, we don't dominate. We dominate in bakery, we dominate in catering, we dominate in cosmetology, we dominate in hairdressing, we dominate in dressmaking. And so these areas, we will look at them more and bring on board a lot of young women who want to, partake in this apprenticeship program. But there's a little twist to it right now. President Mahama used to do this. That's not the first time, actually, where the young ones were registered and placed in the various streets of their interest, and they were given the necessary tools and equipment, to go through the training. And upon graduation, they were also given tools for startup. At this time around, he's going to add what he calls, little bit of allowance, because from experience, some of these young ones, after they are placed, they don't go back because of issues with money for transportation from their places of abode to the center where they are being trained. So President John Dramani Mahama is going to add monthly allowance for the young ones to be registered and placed in the various trades. Before the registration of the interested young people, the various masters will be registered, so we know exactly their capacity, and if they need to be supported or be supported, then these young ones will be also placed in there. So we're looking more also at where women actually dominate. There's one part where every year he's going to set up, let's say, about 10,000 young girls who want to, let's say, go into bakery. Let me use bakery for an example. And they'll be given, the oven, and they'll be given monies, and then there'll be off-takers.
Will this be different from the Ejumara program?
Yeah, it's within, that's
it's also roped into that program.
That's within.
So would you also set program. A quota for girls there in that program, or it's open to all?
Well, it's open to all, but we will be looking at the quotas for the women. In every aspect where you see male and female, we'll be looking at the quotas for the women. But the bakery aspect, for instance, will be largely led for the women to take advantage of it. For those who want to get into bakery, you go in there, you are given the oven, and the startup is taken, so there'll be off-takers. After 5 years, it becomes your own. Yeah.
Maham also made mention of setting up a bank for women. What would be the criteria if I want to access a loan in such a facility?
The first criteria is that you should be a Ghanaian woman. That is the first criteria, to be a Ghanaian woman, and you are into any form of business. Business means you're a woman farmer, and there's somewhere in our policies in agriculture where it's going to set, farm banks for women, so that to be attractive for women to easily have access to farmlands. So if I'm a woman and I want to go into farming, I can access loan from the Women Development Bank, which will have branches in major markets across our nation. You can go for loan. The hawker, the woman who hawks, the woman who trades on the woman, the market woman, the woman who crosses our borders to go and bring in goods to sell, the woman with a very little shop or very big one, the woman, the watches seller, the cocoa seller, every woman. So the first criteria, you should be a woman and a Ghanaian. And
do I need to bring a collateral?
No, there'll be no collateral. One of the difficulties for we women in accessing loans in this country is collateral. A lot of us, if I say I have a house, the house belongs to my husband, and the documents are in his name, or maybe my child. We don't have lands, we don't have documents in our names, we may be driving vehicles that were given to us by our spouses, and the names may even be in the, in the names of our spouses. So we go there and we cannot give any document as collateral. So the Women Development Bank, I call it my own, I call it John Dramani Mahamet's NGO or charity for the Ghanaian woman. Because I realized that if Dr. Agri said, when you educate a woman, you educate a nation, and when you educate a man, you educate an individual. It means that when the woman suffers, the nation suffers. So if you want to empower the nation economically, empower women economically. So he's looking at all sectors. So it doesn't matter how small or how big your business is. You don't need collateral. They are giving us that free to say that women come and access these loans. And those who are not taking huge sums, also it's interest-free for them. But those taking huge sums, they also have...
But then how then would you ensure these people pay back if you're giving them all this money without requesting collateral?
Obviously, there'll be measures put in place. They have the associations, they have cooperatives, and that's one thing that nobody can take from the Ghanaian woman. I don't know about the other countries, but I know about my own, that the Ghanaian women pay. They pay the monies that are given to them to trade or do whatever. So that is one. Two, you can go to the streets now and you find Hawkers Association, they are there. You can go to the market, they are there. So there are going to be systems put in place to make sure that when I go for the money, it's truly I'm a farmer, or truly I'm a trader, or truly I hawk, or I'm into small, big business. So for those taking the huge sums of money, there'll be some level of interest added. It's because if I'm going for, let's say, 2,000 cedis, and we know some women with just 1,000 cedis, they can turn it around. And you're going for, let's say, 100,000 or 200,000 or more. Remember that you have hundreds of women, thousands or 2,000 put together for you.
Okay. So now let's move on to Maham K. That's another policy that you're touting for women. How will this program ensure that they provide quality health care to women?
Well, the Maham K is a program that is sought to take care of our health, to make sure that nothing is too expensive for any of us. So let me use this, we are in October, so it's a breast cancer month. Yeah. So let me use, our breast cancer, not our breast cancer, which has become nightmare for women. It's so difficult, and a lot of women don't even go to check because they have to pay and they don't have what it takes to pay. So like some sort of cancers, liver diseases, and dialysis.
Kidney diseases as well? Dialysis?
Yeah, kidney problems also. It also falls under the Maham K. That is going to make sure that it does not become that the rich survives and the poor dies.
So how would the program work really? Would they pay the medical bills of these individuals?
No, once government puts a system in place, let's say the health insurance, for instance, let me use that. And once you go for a certain service and it's subsidized, or government is saying that, okay, this is what the person has to pay, the rest is going to be borne by government. It took cut across.
But currently, the health ministry, they've already subsidized the cost of dialysis treatment for vulnerable groups. So I'm just wondering how different this would be and how it will be beneficial to women.
No, I was even mentioning the breast cancer, cervical cancer. He's going to set up a system that will go to the various marketplaces where you have large grouping of women, those who go to buy and those who sell, where we will be screened for free, and if there's any trace of cancer, government will take care of it for us. And that he even didn't end there. He said for our husbands, the prostate, because if my husband suffers as a woman, I suffer. And so it should be extended to the men to make sure that they are also taken care of. Now, going back to the dialysis and staff program, I think that what is going to happen is going to benefit women, of course, because women also suffer. Sometimes even through delivery or pregnancy, we get a whole lot of complications, and then it ends up affecting our kidneys. So for women, if we are not even economically so stable, we have a lot of women who are pregnant and we are not married, or we are married or otherwise, but our husbands can take care of us. I think that this Maham K, which is going to take care of kidney patients, to take care of the costs of dialysis and kidney-related issues or liver-related issues. It's not the same as subsidizing something. It's saying that I'm going after this because we know in this nation that as we stand, government can say you subsidize, but we know that it's not everybody who can go for that kidney treatment.
Let's shift attention now to the sports sector. Women participation in sports has always been a challenge because of low funding and also lack of encouragement for young women to be involved in some of the sporting activities. How do you plan to rope in the women and elevate the sports? Well,
we are always, as you've already said. So for us, whatever we are going to do is, the human resource in making sure that we push the women up, encourage more women, and also, let's say our interest in football. Ghana, when we talk about football, our women do well. Who pushes them? Or who talks about the women? We see ourselves trooping in for the men, So these are everything that we're going to do that cuts across. There's going to be special focus and attention so that our women benefit. There'll be a lot of investment in sports infrastructure to make sure that there's an expansion if it's athletics, if it's football, what have you, so that women can also largely benefit from that.
Let's talk about political appointments as we wrap up the conversation. 30% quota for women and participating in politics. You're a woman in politics. How do you plan to rope in women and ensure you encourage young girls to be involved in politics, especially when we've passed the Affirmative Action Bill?
Well, he's going to pass the Affirmative Action Bill. He's going to do that because I think that the first encouragement for us is Professor Nana.
The bill has been passed.
No.
Yes.
Passed. I know it's been passed.
Yes, but you're going to work on implementing
it. Exactly. Because it can be passed. I mean, we are in the system when we know it. Just for the gimmicks, they can be done. Okay, but who is serious about it? It's John Dramani Mahama. He took a bold step by bringing on board a woman as his running mate. And so for us, the first encouragement is Professor Jane Nana Opoku Ajiman. She's the first encouragement. Now, he is going to appoint 30% across board in all political appointments and non-political appointments where government, if it's not your private sector, but, chief executive officer, would have 30%. By 2028, he's moving up to 35%. And then by 2030, he's going to go up to Chimpe, 50-50. Where we have women. Oh yes, no, he will do it. He's a man who is given as the first female vice president, and that alone is a lot of encouragement. Look, when you go around this country, there are a lot of young women who are encouraged to vote for the NDC because it's a place where they give opportunities. There's a place where they don't look at your political party, they don't look at your background, they don't look at the family you come from, and then they are looking at Professor Jane Nana as the one who is the torchbearer for women. And so for me, I'll just say to every woman out there that if you want the political party, that'll really give you an opportunity without looking at where you come from. Somebody like me, I'm a village champion, and I've gotten this far because I belong to the National Democratic Congress. So I invite all women to prepare their tongues and vote for the Women's Bank and vote for women empowerment. Vote for John Dramani Mahama.